I was exposed to the program Loom. Basically allows you to record kind of a run through of things. And I'm like, you know what? I should do that for my clients, because not only can I go through each recipe and the images, it's going to spark my experience on how it tasted. It's personalized for them. And it also allows my extrovert to shine a little bit. I need multiple hands to count how many different recipes I start researching, and I'm like, oh, I can do it this way and I can do it this way. And I just get so crazily obsessed over the most random recipes. And I really want that to come through. And I can't, I'm sorry, my brain just doesn't work. I can't put that in an email. I just can't. Yeah. I gotta put it on a video.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pretty Focused Podcast. I'm here with food photographer and Pretty Focused grad, Melissa Wilbur. And today I'm so excited to talk to Melissa because she has really dialed in what it means to serve her clients well. And she does that, several different ways. I think, Melissa, you're a great example on how you provide a great product, but also your delivery of that product and then how you communicate with your clients. And so I just feel like you just have like this well-rounded approach, and this really helps to set you apart. It helps to keep you front of mind with your clients. And so kind of want to dive into that process, kind of maybe inspire some food photographers on how they can communicate better with their clients, what that might look like for them. And also if we have any food bloggers listening about how they can communicate better with their photographers. But also, if you're a food blogger and you need a photographer or videographer, Melissa's your girl. Let me introduce you to Melissa. So, Melissa, why don't you share just a little bit about, we'll just kind of hit your story just a little bit here in the very beginning. Why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Melissa Wilbur. I created Edible Shots by Melissa in 2021. I Secret Santed myself in late 2020 for Black Friday when I bought the Pretty Focused course. Got through the course. I did have a full-time corporate job as I was doing the course, but that job was very soul-sucking. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad, because when Pretty Focused course and all the different deliverables really piqued my interest for a side hustle, I was like, oh wow, this is great. And I finished the course in May 2024. And then graduated within a couple months after that, right around August. I'm going to give a big shout out to my portfolio buddy, Yoli Katsopoulos, because if it wasn't for her, I probably would have given up. Found her. She's also Pretty Focused grad. We graduated within a couple months of each other, and we are still like besties, like PFF besties.
I love that.
Big shout out to that. But I was working it as a side hustle, and I was able to get a full calendar, serving amazing clients, starting off only offering recreations. And then I started offering more services, exclusive recipes, then into video. But it took a little bit of time to kind of get there. But as I was crunching the numbers, even still only serving with recreations, I mean, I was pretty much at a full calendar. And I realized that I'm like, maybe I can make this full-time job, because the corporate job just was not treating me well. I was basically expected to be a project manager, but paid like a project like assistant coordinator. And that's not bringing me joy. The creating the food, taking pictures of it, helping my clients help their audience to be successful with the recipe one at a time, and just making sure that I hit all the marks and gave them the images that looked drool worthy, scroll stopping, all the things. But the stars must have aligned because my role was eliminated, with a little bit of a caveat on that one. It turns out that my position was one of like 5 in the region. And at that time, one of my other coworkers who wasn't in the role that long, they did a reorganization. Typically when that happens, there are some positions eliminated. My coworker was being eliminated, but I already had 2 feet out the door, Melody. Like I was like, so after a few conversations, I basically kind of asked to be the one to be let go or severed and have to stay. And at first It was a bad conversation. I kind of struck a nerve, but I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I just kind of backpedaled a little bit, but the next day they accepted it. And I was very fortunate to have received a severance package. And I was basically allowed to kind of basically start my kind of dream. This is my dream job. Like it's that the whole quote where, if you love what you do, you never work a day of your life. This is it for me. This is it for me.
I love that so much.
I love it.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget whenever you said that you were facing layoffs, but you were like, I want to go, because the other person they were laying off was like, he was like a dad, right? And
he had a family.
Family, and you were like, no, I volunteer as tribute.
I did. And, I went through the whole chain of command, went to my manager, and he basically kind of said no, went somewhere else. And again, my portfolio buddy, she's like, call HR. And I'm like, really? She's like, just try it. And I was like, the worst they're going to say is no. And at first she was saying no. But when I kind of approached it a different way, kind of said, hey, couldn't help but notice my territory was eliminated in this last reorganization. So what am I going to do? And they're like, no, that wasn't part of the decisions as far as how we're streamlining all these positions. And I'm like, okay, I'm really sorry. I appreciate your time. I just kind of backpedal a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're in those conversations and you struck a nerve, you're like, you know what? Let me actually just let you go, and I will talk to you later. Like, thanks for your time, kind of a thing. But, when they called me the next morning and, getting ready for work, I had a conference call that day, my heart sank a little bit, because I'm like, oh my gosh, now what? And, of course you go down that rabbit hole of despair thinking they're going to, I'm not going to get anything. They're just going to say bye, give me all your access. Don't turn in your keys, kind of a thing. Nope. Apparently, those big corporations, they had a whole severance package, policy. So, my husband was probably just as excited as I was. He's just like, girl, good job. Like,
that's amazing.
I'm like, yeah. And
what a great transition from corporate to jumping into entrepreneurship. I love it so much. Yeah. So how has it gone with since then? And I don't think it was 24. It was 23, right?
20. Yes, 20. No, I finished this course 2021. Sorry.
Okay, 2021. Okay,
it was like and the 4 are on the number pad, are right next to each other.
Okay.
And I probably had a cat walking across my keyboard at the time. So yes, 2021.
I was I don't think that's right. She's been a graduate longer than a year.
2021. I had it and I bolded it, and I'm like, why does that look weird? 2024 makes no sense. 2021.
Yeah.
Just because, lockdown was lockdown. It was rough for everybody. But, I kind of dabbled in food photography. There are some other options, online courses, but it was not as robust. It did not have nearly as much training and amazing people and community that Pretty Focused has. I got to be honest with you. I know I'm a little biased, okay. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but when it comes down to value, 100%. 100% Pretty Focused, because I don't know of any other online self, promoted, like you can take it on your time kind of course that has the same kind of deliverables and opportunities that Pretty Focused has. So, yeah,
love that so much. I'm biased.
I'm very biased.
But yeah, it's so true. So, it's so true. So when you graduated, how long was it then before you quit corporate?
So when I graduated, my package, I graduated, and then it was basically a full year by the time the whole corporate restructure happened. So I basically built a full calendar, and that took some time. And I'd have to say, I started with a couple of different clients and then ended up with different clients, and it just kind of ebbed and flowed that way. And I really did embrace that, hey, maybe this is how the industry is and how it is at that time, because clearly it changes over time. But, I started with clients, and there are actually some clients that I've worked with way in the beginning that sometimes come back. It really just depends on what they need at that time and how they're outsourcing And then, maybe they need to pause and then they come back, or maybe they're, they're just whatever their changes are. I've always left on good notes. Let's just
that's awesome. So how has from whenever you started to now, because now you have this client communication system that you have built really dialed in.
Yep.
But I am sure like most people, like maybe it didn't start that way.
Right.
So how did your client communication start? And like, was there anything that happened along the way that made you go, I'm going to start doing it like this? Because sometimes whenever we make those types of changes, something happens and like maybe communication is dropped, or it's just a learning experience that kind of helps you grow into what you have and what you offer now, right? So tell us what that experience was like. Like, how did you first start out communicating with clients, and how did you end up to what you do now?
So when I was hired, obviously starting with recreations, basically I'd have all the finished images, including ingredient, process, beauty shots, all into an online gallery where they can just go to it, take a look, download it, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
And I would be delivering it via email, perfectly fine, confirm all that information, when we're getting to know each other. And, within about a year or two, I kind of felt that it was just flat. And as a former like project coordinator, and I'm also a certified project management professional, I have that PMP, crazy. I just felt that my emails were so wordy. And I was just kind of thinking, kind of from my client's perspective, I'm like, well, how can I make this a little bit easier? Or how can I make this better? How can I level up? Email's great, but I tend to, again, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'd be rewriting these emails to try and tell them my experience. And if they're giving me more, I mean, I've had clients in the past that I was their sole photographer and they had multiple sites. So they were sending me more than 4 per month. That's a lot of detail to try and put into an email. Who has time for that? No one.
Yeah.
So, and then also simultaneously, I had finished the video masterclass. I was now doing recipe videos. And dare I say, it's one of those things, me being on camera, it's kind of one of those, face your fears and you're not going to be afraid of it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Let me figure this out. With exposure to other online courses that offer different, facets of food photography, maybe the commercial side, I was exposed to the program Loom. Basically allows you to record basically a message, a tutorial, kind of a run through of things. Yep. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of cocked my hat. I'm like, I should do that for my clients, because not only can I go through each recipe and the images, I can then, while I'm going through the images, it's going to spark my experience on how it tasted, obviously, when I was done with the pictures, unless, that bite shot needs to be eaten. I mean, am I right or am I right? When I take a bite shot of a cake, I'm like, no, I got to clean that fork. I mean,
I know.
It's kind of a job requirement. Like, I'm just saying, no.
Yes.
But, how did it taste? But what was my approach based on my research on Garnish? What was the texture? And especially some of the, I've had clients that sent me older recipes that they either revised just a little bit because maybe it was from a contributor, or maybe it just needs a glow up, whatever the case is. They appreciate when I give this kind of feedback. Not that I won't summarize it in an email, but I now kind of let them know, listen, I have some feedback on my experience on each recipe. Here's the link. And it's basically like me calling my clients and leaving a voicemail, but in video, and they can watch it whenever they have time.
Yeah.
And my Loom messages, my client delivery messages only go to my client. Nobody ever else is going to see it. I mean, unless I share it with somebody else, randomly, they could share it on the internet if they want to, but it's personalized for them. And it really does. And it also allows my extrovert to shine a little bit, because there are times, I'm not kidding you, that I get excitedly obsessed over the recipe. Not only the recipe, but like how I'm going to photograph it. Most of the time that tends to happen when I'm developing exclusives, because obviously I'm testing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm testing, I'm like, well, what does this batter look like? What is it supposed to look like? Does it look great? Is it, just to prepare their readers to say, listen, it may not look great now, but it's going to look wonderful if you follow the recipe and do it this way. And this is what you're going to end up with. And I mean, I need multiple hands to count how many different recipes I start researching. And I'm like, oh, I can do it this way and I can do it this way. And I'm like, oh, that shot would be so money. And I just get so crazily obsessed over the most random recipes. And I really want that to come through. And I can't, I'm sorry. My brain just doesn't work. I can't put that in an email. I just can't.
Yeah.
I gotta put it on a video.
Yeah.
I also do allow myself during that message for each recipe, if the client sends me more than one, that I can let them know my approach on garnish. Garnish is very important, especially like salads. They already have a ton of color. Well, what are you going to add for texture? What other things can you put? Salt and pepper goes a long way. Sea salt flakes go a long way. I love that opportunity to send it to them. And even if they have video and images, I don't talk really fast, but in the beginning, when I first started using the Loom, I said, hey, this is my new delivery system. I kind of had a little bit of a disclaimer. At the time, I had a studio cat she was very old, and she would yell when I was videotaping. And you can pause and you can crop it and you can get rid of it. So like you can pause and then you can restart it.
Yeah, for sure.
Something. But I really never did. I mean, unless it was a complete disaster. I'm like, Melissa, you need to start that over again. But at that time I had one, regretfully she has passed. But, I had a little disclaimer, like, my cat wants to say hi, here you go. And then I just go into it. And, I have clients that look forward to my video messages saying, this is great information. I'd like to summarize. It just gives me an opportunity to summarize, especially exclusives. Because being in the recipe development course and just kind of honing in on those skills, there are times I go down that rabbit hole. And I'm glad I do, because if I felt that there was like something confusing on a recipe, I want to make sure that I'm explaining it simple but thorough enough for someone like a brand new cook or an experienced cook to nail it.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
So I like sharing those details and a video message when I deliver, and it's only once a month to each of my clients to those clients. And, it gives me that opportunity.
Yeah.
I actually use a Loom to present my investment guide to potential clients.
Oh, wow.
That's actually, I may have scared some people off.
But hey,
but you know what?
Then they're not your ideal. Then they're not your ideal, because you want somebody who's going to appreciate the work that you put in for it. You know what I mean? And so you really are kind of sifting then at the very beginning. But what I love here with this video, and those of you who are wondering, like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to do a video to deliver? Because no, you do not have to do that. But here are the benefits of Melissa sharing this in video form. First of all, you are building just a relationship, right? They are seeing your cat, what I mean? They're seeing your studio, they're seeing your face, they're hearing your expression and your tone of voice, right? And so they're really able to kind of get to know you. They're able to build a little bit more of a relationship with you, which I think is genius. But two, like you said, there's just so much information. And I know, especially right now, so with how blogging has changed over the last, few years, here's like a quick high level recap. So 2015, 2016, we get like the stories and the anecdotes of like, I am making this lobster roll and let me tell you about my vacation in Maine. It was very diary like, the blog posts were, and then they went from like these personal stories around the recipe that it didn't really share how to make the recipe. There were just a couple of photos of the recipe, but there were no ingredients, there were no process, And so then we moved to just like right before you started, Melissa, that writing for expert advice. And that's where bloggers are really starting to write well, here's how you make the lobster roll, and here's how you choose the best lobster. And so they're really highlighting that recipe. Here's how you store the lobster roll. Here's how you can serve it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now what we're seeing is almost like a mesh between the two because of how AI is. You want to be able to add that personal touch to each recipe. That's not something you can just, how do I store a lobster roll? And then AI overview, pops up, or ChatGPT pops up, right? You really want to be able to share that personal connection, that personal experience with the recipe. So I would say it's almost like a mesh between the two now. And so the fact that you're able to share and communicate with your clients, this recipe was amazing. Like, you are really sharing them. They're going to use that information and they're going to be able to write a more well-rounded blog post using that information. I think it's absolutely genius what you're doing. For those of you who don't want to do a video, though, I think that you can still put that in written format. And in fact, Melissa and I were talking about 3 T's beforehand. We just made up.
Made it up. Yep, she did it.
Yeah, I was like channeling my inner Redonda, because this is totally her. But it's like taste, texture, toppings, or garnishes. But, just like if you can hit those 3 aspects and those 3 pieces every time you are, sharing that recipe with your clients, like, they are going to love you. And by taste, Melissa, how do we say this? It tasted great. It was delicious. Like, how can we like elaborate on taste? How can we elaborate on textures?
Oh, I actually come up with kind of quirky little analogies, so to speak, on some of the recipes. One I recently did was a pumpkin dump cake. Dump cakes are dump cakes. I mean, you mix together a batter, you pour some stuff on there, melted butter, you can't go wrong with that. This one you had an option of doing either chopped, like your favorite chopped pecan, or walnuts. You could pick your one. And then toffee chips. Well, my client wanted toffee chips, and I'm like, well, hey, I love toffee chips. So I mean, no judgment here. So made it, and you got to let it cool, or else you're looking at like blobs. And I knew it would not film or photograph well. So of course you let it cool, and I'm looking online. A lot of my research shows it cut into like pieces, like a cake. So I did that. Well, it's pumpkin. We're getting into PSL season. I mean, come on, gotta love PSL.
Absolutely. Amen.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to source out a pumpkin pie. It's not a dessert I'm going to go for, but let me taste it. Really good texture. And I basically came up, I'm like, you know what? This is like a pumpkin pie and a toffee bar had a baby. And there you go. But it was tasty. I mean, it was cooked through. The timing was spot on. And of course, you got to garnish it a little bit. Drizzle of caramel sauce. You can't go wrong with that. Some extra toffee chips, just because the ones that cooked kind of melted in and kind of created this beautiful, nice brown crust. Well, I needed a little bit of texture, so you extra topping. Who doesn't like topping?
I can taste it. I can literally taste it.
And then the caramel sauce. So the caramel sauce was nice and gooey. I got tons of footage with drizzle. Got some.
Was it your homemade sauce or store bought?
I had some store bought in there. The homemade sauce is gone. Girl, that does not last in my house, especially if I make it with the Kentucky butter bourbon cake. It doesn't last. But I mean, and I really kind of sat in my kitchen. I'm like, should I just go ahead and make some? I could just go ahead and make some. There's a lot of times that I will look at a garnish, even if it's not part of the recipe, or something it has to go with it for the recipe to be known as pumpkin dump cake. I know caramel is optional, but there are times I'm like, well, okay, well, it needs broccoli. I'm just going to saute some broccoli, or I'm going to make that caramel, because leveling up those images or the video, if it helps my client in any way, especially now how food blogging is and how AI is AI and certain things happening, I want to make it nice and easy for my clients. And that's just another angle that I love to serve and love to love on them. And if they don't use the image, they don't use the image, and that's totally fine. I'm fine with that. But yeah, caramel, I kind of come up with these quirky little analogies. In terms of describing how something tastes, like I said before, I get like excitedly upset for certain recipes. A lot of times it comes with the exclusives because I've tested it a couple times. There have been some that have not tested well, but I've had to change it. But there is one that really sticks out that I geeked out, not only on the session planning, but like, I was just like, this would be a great video. And I thought of it later. I'm like, this would have been a great video. And I could still do with the video. It would just be in my portfolio. But it was a homemade chicken gravy, girl, with drippings. It came together so quickly. But it's like, okay, well, it's a gravy shoot. And as a food photographer and my bloggers are able to outsource that kind of work, well, I'm getting paid a pretty penny for gravy. Well, what am I going to do? Well, obviously, you got all the steps making the gravy. You got to get some nice drizzled pour shots from I think obviously the pretty focused way from the first pan, or like how it's finished.
Yep.
To the next item to the next item, and be realistic. I try and be realistic when it comes to like my stages of items. So homemade chicken gravy. I'm telling you, it makes my rotation on my dinner list. Like, I'm not even shooting it, at least once every other month. I'm not kidding. It's so good. So
gravy.
I did some research, but it was paired with, a chicken dish, chicken and stuffing. Well, gotta have some pieces, nice sliced pieces of chicken, pouring that gravy on there. Then I got real cheeky and I, again, went down that rabbit hole. The rabbit hole and I are like best friends. Like I come down, he like sits and he like serves me tea. He's like, girl, what you got going on? So I came up with, and I went ahead and made the ingredients on my own. Well, chicken gravy, a homemade KFC chicken bowl, mashed potatoes, corn on the, like pieces of like cooked corn, little pieces of like a chicken nugget. You can use a frozen, you can use homemade, whatever.
Yep.
And then like different angles and different ways that I'm pouring this gravy on top. I kid you not, I was obsessed. I was literally like, I totally overshot that session. And when I delivered, it may not have been when I was looming, but when I delivered, I did message her and I'm like, I'm obsessed with this recipe. I'm so glad you gave me this assignment. Here's why. Perfectly balanced with salt and pepper. I really do encourage people to taste it first before they season it again. We did a really good job on making sure that the thickening, the roux, the butter and the flour were nice and lightly toasted. You got the drippings from your slow cooker recipe. You add a little bit of extra broth, and then you got to let it sit, and then you got to let the skin form. So it's very detailed and like, yeah, I mean, it's perfectly balanced with salt and pepper, but you can add a little bit more. Taste it first. But then when you do eat it, you can eat it on chicken. You can eat it, but you can just lick the spoon.
You can eat it in a house. You can eat it with a mouse. You can eat it on a train or on a plane.
On a plane. You can eat it anywhere. So, yeah, KFC chicken bowl. I'm not kidding you. And I got so many great shots. And it took me a little while. There's some that I had to restage. But I had plenty of gravy. I had plenty of things off the side. Like my behind the scenes is always a hot mess. Like we see people on the internet, see our stuff out in the wild on the internet. And it's also pretty, you should see what came out to like made that happen. I had napkins and towels, like trays just full of all the mess of like, spatulas and things that I'm using to keep the bowl clean, wipe this off or reset the board. And so that's basically it. But yeah,
what was their response? They assigned you a gravy recipe and you delivered it on just like a chicken dinner, but then you also made the KFC bowl.
Yep.
So what did she say when she saw those images?
If I recall, and this is kind of dating back a little bit, I think she was in love with it. She was just like, that is the best idea. And it almost basically created like a second post if she wanted to do a second post.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
For a return on investment, I'm totally fine. There's so many times that I get assigned a recipe concept from my clients and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this could be a recipe within a recipe. And maybe I could do a couple little extra images of the final gallery with just this, seasoning or sauce or whatever. I did it with the caramel sauce and I did an extra little like promo video with it. And I was just like, you know what? This is my gift to you because you're consistently sending me recipes, not only to develop, but to video for you. And you trust me with your audience and your digital assets. Once in a while, when I see the opportunity to give them something complimentary, again, that's just how I run it. And my boss totally agrees. My boss is totally great. She's amazing. Like, best boss ever. When I can do an extra, like a little extra freebie, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
100%. And does it cost me much? If it's within another recipe, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit more in editing, depending on what the item is, but it really doesn't cost me that much.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're like, you look for those ways that you can go above and beyond, but how you, even if, okay, so take out like the Loom videos, just you communicating, I love this recipe, I love this gravy, and here's why we loved it. It was perfectly balanced here, and I think that level of communication and description positions you as an expert in recipe development. Do you know what I mean? That's what it does, is it really, really positions you as an expert in recipe development. And so for those of you doing exclusives, I would, and you've got shops, or you're working one-on-one with clients, or, however that looks, and even this even goes for recreations, right? Look for those opportunities in your workflow to, like, how can you increase that communication on how the recipe tastes, the texture, the toppings, like how can you communicate better in that way? And for recreations too, I think a lot of people, if they do a recreation and maybe it doesn't turn out right, or, they do an exclusive for a client and it doesn't turn out, sometimes our default setting is to panic and we don't want to tell anybody that we messed up. And I think especially now, people need to know that how that recipe actually turned out. So obviously, if you have a recreation that a recipe a client gave you, it didn't turn out, did you follow the directions, go through and make sure you did everything right, but communicate to them. And, let them know you're going to have to reshoot it. Like, you can communicate those reshoots, but when you can up the communication and say, like, I tried this and it honestly didn't work the first time. And I think that's communication saved, I think, on the back end of things. Like, I wouldn't advertise a recipe and be like, this failed 3 times, but like in the notes of the recipe, that's where I would include that information. I wouldn't use it to sell the recipe, but you can definitely put it on that back end. But just like, don't be afraid if something doesn't turn out. Like, people want to know that. They want to know the real life experience, right? Because we all have those. And so be transparent and be consistent, I think, in that transparency too. And that's going to kind of help you and increase the communication and the relationship, with your clients. So,
I agree.
I think those are really great. Those are really great tips, but you want to do that because, again, it positions you as the expert. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want your clients to remember you as, like, the expert. I know whenever I buy from Melissa that I am going to get X, Y, and Z, and I know I'm going to get it every single time. And that builds trust. The transparency that you're providing with your clients and the consistency in which you're doing it has built so much trust with them. So again, great job. Fantastic.
Yep. And our clients, whether they're mine or somebody else's, other, pre-focused grads that are earning their business, it does take a little bit of time to earn that trust. There's a little bit of a honeymoon phase when it comes to working with clients, especially if they're like, hey, I want to work with you continuously. How about we do X amount of recipes per month? And these are the kind of deliverables I need. Okay, great. It's taken me a little bit of time to kind of get there. And there have been, dare I say that I always strive for perfection, but I know I'm not perfect. But it's just taken a little bit of time. It does not happen overnight. You got to give yourself a little bit of, grace and kind of come up with what works best for you. My communication, again, my delivery for my clients is mine. And now a lot of clients are going to be getting Loom videos. Here we go. We're going to introduce their dog and, there we go. I don't have cats that bother me anymore, when I'm recording, unless my Siamese finds his toy and he starts yelling, and that's a totally different story. But, for the most part, again, I love delivering it. And again, it could be something, they may not watch it. Like, and I know I take that risk. It's like, I always ask myself, what's the worst case scenario? Is that they don't watch it and they're just going to have to, and they rely on what I put in the email. I like to keep my email nice and simple, the link to their gallery or their video previews or both, ready to download. Hey, I want some feedback on these recipes. I do include my message, and I may include a couple blurbs here and there. One other thing I do actually like to use the Loom was actually when I'm announcing maybe new services that I'm offering. Maybe I have openings on my calendar. And again, it's like kind of like you said, building trust, building rapport with my clients. Hey, listen, I have some extra space. If you happen to have any extra recipes you'd like to develop, or if you know anybody, I'd love a referral. I mean, it's better than me trying to type it out in an email. Email's flat communication. It has its space. It has its need, granted. And when it comes to email and communication with my clients, even before the shoot, I don't want to say that that I gatekeep anything, but I've been doing this for long enough that I should know how to execute their recipe. I should know the approach that they're looking for. Again, I don't read minds. Right. So there are some topics I do need to ask. If there's a specific detail of a recipe that I just want to clarify, pan size, that sort of thing. Or if it's one of a newly developed recipe, but it's not posted yet, well then, okay, any chance you have any cell phone pictures? Yes or no? And even if they don't, that's okay. I'll go online, I'll find the most common research and kind of that's going to be my approach. Yeah. And if I share that in a nice, simple form in an email, hey, then if that's the case, this is how I'm going to approach it. If you want any changes, let me know by X date. I tend to also phrase kind of things when I do message my clients for recipes that don't work. I've actually learned my lesson that I probably should reach out to the grad group first when something goes wrong to get advice and kind of realize, hey, I did do something wrong before messaging the client, because I don't want them to get nervous that I can't execute a cookie recipe.
Sure.
When it turns out that in Arizona, room temperature butter only takes an hour and you need it at 70 degrees. You don't need it to sit for it's not the winter time. We don't have humidity. So when you do actually pay attention and research what room temperature butter is supposed to be and remake it, you get these beautiful cookies. And
70 to 72 degrees, right? That's, by the way, if you're wondering.
Digital gun, and I shoot it, and I'm like, girl, that butter is ready. She is ready to shoot. And I'm like, okay, I got to drop everything. I'm ready to shoot these cookies. Had I done that first, I would, if I ever fail a recipe ever fails, I probably will just go back and be like, did you really do that? Did you do it that right? Or did you want to do, especially baking? I know some savory ones are, if you
right.
Like you weren't paying attention. But baking can get a little tricky. And there, I don't want to say I'm the best baker, but I'm way better than I was. So I've learned, I'm just like, well, you know what? I don't want to not tell the client if there's an issue with the recipe, but maybe I didn't follow it. And it turns out in some instances I didn't. So the fact that the community that Pretty Focus is built, technically I'm asking competitors for help. Technically I am. And you know what? It is so I'm so nervous when asking for help, but a lot of times it's better to reach out and say, okay, this is the recipe. It's a recreation. This is where it turned out. I'm not kidding you, Melody. They were flatter than pancakes. My butter was too soft. 100%. The amount of knowledge of people that are basic, could be just baking only food photographers. They're just like, check your butter. How much, was your butter really soft? You know what? It was super soft. It was over soft. Yeah. And they're just like, butter should be at this temperature. And I'm kind of Googling and I'm like, you know what? You guys are right. And I posted an update. Beautiful, amazing cookie. Now, what's interesting is that it tasted great, but it looked horrible. It was not photogenic.
Yeah.
And another way I pay it forward is that I bring the treats and stuff to our favorite bartenders, our favorite restaurant staff and stuff like that, as well as Dutch Brothers. So I stopped at Dutch Brothers, which is it started in Arizona, but I think they started to kind of branch out outside of Arizona and the South.
I think they started in Oregon and now their headquarters are here. Yeah.
Yes. So Dutch Brothers has, their clientele and their drinks are just off the, there's so many secret menus. They have energy drinks, iced teas, black teas, cold brew coffees, lattes. You can freeze.
Not sponsored, by the way, but Dutch Bros, hey, if you want to sponsor us.
I know, call me. But their staff, their broistas, like they will put little notes, like they will put like little notes on your on your coffee cup, and you look and it says like, have an amazing day. I'm like, I will. Thank you for reminding me. They just make you, like, when they get to chat with you. And I made friends at the local one. So I had these flat cookies. And so I had this bag, and it made 6 dozen. Melody, I had like 2 bags of cookies. And I told them, I'm like, they know I'm a food photographer and videographer. And I brought treats before, and I kind of told them, and I kind of sat there and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I made these chocolate chip cookies. My butter was too soft, so they baked really flat. They taste great. They taste like a chocolate chip cookie. They're just not photogenic. Can I give these to you? And the staff was like, they were like hooting and hollering in the background. So it didn't go to waste. And you know what? Again, that whole scenario was a great way on like client communication. Yes, there are instances you may need to tell a client a recipe didn't work. And I have another anecdote to share on that. But then I also realized that, okay, if I'm questioning that I didn't follow the recipe and I want help, Pretty Focus has an amazing community, technically my competitors, that I can give them a picture, tell them what it is,
right,
where I'm having issue, why is it looking like this? If it's not photogenic, I stopped the shoot. There's a couple things I could have done at that point to maybe fix it, but you know what? I'm glad I posted where I did. I had such a better result. And as soon as I had the better result, I filmed that, sent it to my client. I said, my butter, I'm like 71 degrees, room temperature butter, 100%, you're going to get this nice, beautiful, thick cookie. And again, I had another 6 dozen cookies to give away. So, it taught me a lot. And, if I'm able to grasp any new lesson from any recipe, I love it. That's a good day for me. So
yeah, I love that. I love now, you first, instead of just jumping to your client, right, you went and asked for help from the grad group.
Yep.
And then you reworked or, fixed that part of the recipe. And now you have additional notes to share with the client on that 71 degree butter. Because if it's too glossy, it's too warm.
Too warm. Too soft.
It still needs to have the matte.
Yeah.
I've learned that,
Yep.
just same. I mean, we're both in Arizona, so.
One indent. And it's still a little bit, it holds its shape, but lets you indent. If you go all the way through way too fast, too warm, put it back in the fridge, use it for something else.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. So Melissa, do you have any, as we wrap up, do you have any maybe tips for new photographers or, those who are already working with clients? Like, how can they, increase and improve their communication with clients?
They don't have to do a Loom, but if you did decide to do a Loom and you're putting yourself out there and you're engaging, and you can there is a free level. I mean, you can save money, but I went a little bit more because I wanted to be able to save them. But I also use Loom when newer grads are looking for some assistance on, say, their Shopify or all the digital assets, because everything has its own sizing. But when it comes to a client experience, you don't have to do a video. You can. When it comes to delivering to them, I going back to my project days, keep it simple. Like, keep it simple, stupid, but keep it simple, sister.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, so you want to let them know your approach on the garnish, on the toppings, what the texture was, if there's any variance in the temperature. Again, ovens have, every oven may have a little bit of a, I know my hot spots in my oven. I know exactly where they are, and I know where to rotate. How did it taste? If you tasted it. Now, you don't have to taste every single recipe, especially if it's not something that you like to eat. But even from the images, you can tell what the texture is. If it's a fish dish, did it cut through quickly? Or did it look dry? Is it like, okay, maybe scale back on the time a little bit? You know what I'm saying? So you can include that, and you can keep it simple. If you have one or more recipes, you can say, what the recipe name, how it tasted, what the texture was like, temperature spot on, and this is my approach to garnish. Move on to the next one. You can keep it simple.
Yeah. But I would say specific, because some people might hear simple and be like, it was delicious. No, that's not specific enough.
Yeah.
So you can,
delicious.
You can like keep it simple, but also specific, I would say too.
Keep it simple and specific. Keep it simple, specific, sister. Kiss.
Yeah. Keep it simple and specific, sister. Yeah. Look at us with our alliterations today.
No, if it's a guy photographer, because we do have some grads that are guys, from another mister.
Yeah. There you go.
Got another one. But yeah, I mean, pick something that works great for you and then kind of lean into it. And it's okay if you aren't enjoying it, then don't do it. Because if you don't,
heavens no.
If you're not enjoying what you're doing for your client delivery, then don't do it. I mean, that's going to come through, and they're going to be like, "Why am I doing that?"
Absolutely.
But there is a way you can convey and go above and beyond in written form. Again, my style. Again, I got an introvert and an extrovert kind of living in the same body, and there are times that I'm too wordy. And so I'm like, you know what? I really just want to go through my experience. This is our approach, and this is what we do. The videos work for me. But then again, I'm also a videographer. But that also, I don't want other videographers to think that they have to deliver that way. They deliver with their clients is how they're delivering to their clients. But newer grads, if you wanted to maybe consider a little extra, je ne sais quoi, you could consider a video message. You don't have to do it, but you can consider it. I mean, it's just another option. I find that it works for me. I love it. Again, like it's a video voicemail. My clients can watch whenever they want on their time, when it's convenient. And if they don't want to watch it, then they don't want to watch it. I mean, no one else is ever going to see it.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. If you guys found this podcast helpful, go down, leave a review. We would love to hear from you guys. Send us some mail. We love reading it. But I hope that you found this episode helpful. I know I did. Melissa's experience with or how she communicates with clients is just, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's next level. And so whether you do videos, like I hope that you look for opportunities on how you can increase your communication with your clients. But all right, you guys, that wraps up this episode. We'll see you back here next time for another episode of the Pretty Focus Podcast.